Welcome back to lesson 29. Freedom is love under all conditions. So let's dive right in, shall we? So, right out of the gate, Jesuit starts talking about karma. And that, when he talks about, is this idea that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And it's interesting because, in the subtle ways, he says it can only exist if, and in the third paragraph down, it talks to it he mentions it starts with the paragraph starts, now I've said before that karma can exist only where unconditional loving does not exist. So in other words, if you're basically unconditionally loving, then karma can't exist. But if there is unconditional, or if there's conditional loving going on, then he mentions in the one paragraph that starts, what do you mean by that? He talks about there's two ways that it can show up. It could show up immediately. And of course, what comes to mind is the old song, Insta Karma is going to get you. So instant karma. Or the second is mediated through the forms of time. And then in the next section that's called Unloving Thoughts Alter the Chemical Balance of Your Body, I think it's interesting that right away he starts talking about this idea that when it's the immediate part of karma is you can feel it in your body, which is, I think, really, really good from an awareness standpoint. And I constantly am saying this: emotional intelligence, emotional awareness is part of this journey. And this idea of when you think something, some type, again, what is it? It's some type of a unloving thought, you'll feel it in your body. And I always say, do an experiment. Just close your eyes and think of something and just say, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And just feel it in your body. You can feel it. I normally feel it in my heart or in my gut. Whereas if you then shake that off and then just go, I love you, I love you, I love you, you'll feel a different experience in your body. And to me, that's exactly what Jesuit is talking about here. Further on down in that small section, he starts talking about depression. In the one paragraph that starts off, well, it's actually technically still in the first paragraph, the last sentence. Depression can only occur in a mind that has been denying its pathway to joy. And I just think that's such a powerful statement. Again, depression can only occur in the mind that has been denying its pathway to joy. And then in the next paragraph, it goes into a deeper identification, or I should say explanation or definition of depression and the way that it works. The paragraph, depression then is the result of a resistance to the true flow of life throughout the body mind, right? And it goes down even deeper into how to deal with that. As you begin to walk the spiritual path, you realize you need to be open to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and that in fact you cannot awaken yourself, because if you could, you would have done so already. The next paragraph goes even further and talks about this idea. There are many ways in which you can resist and create a blockage in the flow of energy throughout the system. So in other words, there is a blockage in the system, right? And it all is surrounds some form of a negative thought. All negativity is an expression of fear. Um, and it goes on to explain it, depression even a little bit more. In the next section, the world will mirror your thoughts and your beliefs. So I just think this is such a powerful section. And he gives a lot of different examples of how this can show up in your life. But I love the sentence in the very first paragraph, the last sentence. It says, then you'll have the negative thought again, and you will mistakenly believe that the negative thought is there because of the conditions outside of yourself. So in other words, what's happening is you are looking outside of yourself, and what's happening is you keep letting your beliefs and everything else say, well, it's true because I'm seeing it outside of myself. When instead, if you go, well, the reason I'm seeing this outside of myself is because it's inside of me, right? And so I just think it's a very interesting, deep level of processing going on here in this section specifically. And he has you actually start going through this little exercise where you start actually asking yourself questions, which I think are really powerful questions. And the one paragraph that starts, in the way I've invited you to look at your life, how are the events that are occurring and the quality of life that you are living possibly reflecting the self-fulfilling prophecy? In other words, how are the things that are showing up in your life, the bigger areas in your life, your friends, your family, your finances, your health, all of those kinds of things, how are they actually showing up as a result of your beliefs or your thoughts about them? That's what I say. It's all about spiritual mindset. It's all about using your heart. It's all about tapping in and checking your beliefs in these different things and what it means for you. To continuously go into that paragraph, in other words, how could it be merely the fulfillment of the karma of how you're using the mind? How are you using your mind? Usually in the secondary form, the way the karma shows up, the beliefs or thoughts are very, very old and deep in your unconscious mind. And that's why I say it's all about uncovering what's in the unconscious mind. As you go back in time and you look at your life, ask, what must I have believed previously for this effect to be showing up? And again, we do this without no shame, blame, guilt, or judgment, right? None. So in other words, we're looking at ourselves very compassionately, with grace, with forgiveness, with love, self-love. And then we're just observing. We're like, oh, wow, right? And then we're just going, oh, I see how I did that. I see how I did that. And then, it's interesting because one of these sections I highlighted this and I was like, pay attention, Mike, right? And it is in the paragraph that starts, if, for instance, the parents believe that spirituality and material wealth cannot go together, and therefore to be spiritual means to do without materiality, then look at how your life has evolved. And I can certainly relate to that, right? Do you find a block at receiving money for being of service to others, but no block in receiving money for doing something that you dislike? And I just had to laugh at that and say, oh my God, right? Oh my God. And I think it's interesting in my own life, as I look in the past and I did these jobs, and it's not even like I was making a lot of money doing them, but it's what I felt like I needed to do versus just following my heart, which is more of what I'm doing now, right? And it's interesting how money seems to be flowing a lot easier than it did back then when I was doing something that I thought I needed to do to make money, and I just hated doing it. And now I'm doing what I love, and money's flowing much easier and smoother for me. So just goes on in that chapter, in that section of the chapter, just to continuously asking questions about what are you thinking? Like all of these things are showing up again, because we're accepting radical responsibility for what's going on in our life. And we're realizing that our thoughts are the things that are creating these things again and again and again, coming back to the same topic, right? And then further on down in that section, I love the quote in the paragraph that starts, now I have indeed said that karma can only exist where unconditional loving does not. What does it mean? When the mind unconditionally loves, it loves first itself. When the mind unconditionally loves, it loves first itself. Start with you. Start with you. Start with you. And places no conditions upon what it receives as ideas from the universe. So again, we're leaving ourselves open to be guided and directed, and we're not judging ourselves. We're holding ourselves with compassion, with grace, with forgiveness, and seeing what happens and starting to pay attention to what's showing up in our lives. No judgment, shame, blame, judgment, or guilt. None of that stuff, right? So in the next section, karma does not exist in unconditional love. The first paragraph starts off and it says, further on down in the paragraph, it says, nothing that occurs in life can cause it, contain, or withdraw its love. And I wrote down next to that, there's no duality, right? Because there can only be love. And further on down the paragraph that starts, so there is a transcendence of karma through unconditional love. The last paragraph, the last sentence in that paragraph says, you love the self because your creator loved you enough to create the self. Right? The next paragraph, there truly are no effects that are occurring as a result of a source of power outside of you. I just think that's so incredibly important to pause for a minute and spend time with it. That says there's the what's occurring as a result of a source of power that is there is no effects of something that's happening to you as a result of a source of power outside of you. I know for such a long time I believe that things were happening to me because of some outside force. It's not. And again, that's a big, huge leap in consciousness to be able to stand there and go, no, I'm creating this. But again, this comes down to where you go from being a victim into a powerful creator. You accept full responsibility for everything that's showing up. And then, of course, the next sentence, in other words, nothing is being done to you. That's correct. Nothing. You are free in each and every moment through the power of love to free yourself of what looks like the effects of the world, right? And then further down in that section, where Yeshua says, karma is the most interesting concept and it shows up in many, many ways. Ask yourself, where are the effects I experience in my life that are a result of karmically induced thought as opposed to the thought of unconditional self-acceptance? Again, this is coming down to this idea of just total acceptance of yourself. Every single part of yourself, even the parts that we don't want to accept. You're accepting those parts of yourself. So in other words, instead of ignoring them, instead of trying to get away from them, instead of, oh no, I can't do that, or whatever, like this is a bad part of me, I should not be doing this, this should not be happening, what am I doing? Start first, in terms of the healing process, start first with this idea of, how about if you just accept that part of yourself and love that part of yourself to healing, versus rejecting it to healing, or shaming it to healing, or guilting it into shame, into healing. Those things don't work. Clearly, if they would have worked, I would be walking on water and making water into wine, trust me. And I'm sure you could look at yourself and go, oh yeah, I kind of do a lot of that. The following paragraph says, beloved friends, the fact that you're experiencing yourself, the sentence that says, this insane idea, this mad idea that I could separate myself from the love of God and create an experience that convinces me that I have succeeded at achieving separation, right? And that's what the ego wants us to constantly be in a state of, is going like, yeah, I'm separate from God. I'm separate from God. That's what the ego wants. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm not separate from God. No, I'm not in any way, shape, or form, right? Further on down in that section, I think the last paragraph, everything that you see is there to support your happy experience. What if you lived your life just believing that one sentence, that everything that's happening in my life is here to support my happy experience, not my unhappy experience? You're free to live in your highest joy, ask for what you want, and to open the heart to love. And the universe will respond according to your beliefs you hold about yourself within yourself. Right there, if you could take that one sentence and just live your life like that, and you really believed it, your life would completely change. Absolutely would change, without a doubt, right? And so I think that's such a powerful, powerful, powerful question. I'll say it again. And the universe will respond according to the beliefs you hold about yourself within yourself. Simple. Are you divine? Are you a child of God? Are you perfect, whole, and complete right now? Are you a powerful being? Those are the kind of questions and beliefs that we need to be really looking at as we continue our journey down and through the rest of these lessons, right? In the last section, called Karma Can Be Transcended, there's a lot of questions in here that we're being asked to look at and to ask ourselves. For example, right away, what must I have believed is true about this world to be living the life I'm living right now, right? So again, if you're looking at it from a standpoint without shame, blame, judgment, or guilt, and you're just being honest, like, I'm looking at my life where I'm standing right now, what must I have believed in order for this to be happening, right? And so this is not to say that karma is bad or wrong. It's not. It's merely an effect, cause and effect. Then ask yourself the following questions. And then he goes through and gives you a bunch of questions, which are great exercises. The next paragraph that starts, karma can be transcended by translating it into something else. For when you see the effects called your life are the result of limited, fearful, negative thoughts or beliefs that you've held about yourself and about the world. One of the things that I've done, or I suggest people do, is go and make a list. What do I believe about myself? What do I believe about the world? What do I believe about God? Right? These different things, just to really, really do a deep dive into your beliefs and realize that your beliefs are creating your reality. And when all of a sudden you do that without shame, blame, judgment, or guilt, then all of a sudden you can go, oh, you mean I can start changing my mind, which is ultimately what we're doing here. Same things the Fillmores talked about, same thing that the masters talked about, Jesus and other. All they did was they changed their mind, their mindset, the way that they were thinking. In the paragraph, I highlighted this whole paragraph. In the very means, any set of conditions created as the effect of fear-based thinking now becomes the very pathway. And that's why I highlighted it. It is your pathway back. Again, the very conditions that you're currently experiencing, especially if they're not good, are your pathway back that will lead you to transcend the negative thinking and enter a domain of the use of the mind that will create effects far more enjoyable. Do not then lament your life as it is, for it is absolutely perfect. That one took me a while to wrap my mind around, especially when I was younger. I could not believe that what was showing up was perfect, especially if you saw the crap that was going on in my life. I would not have said it was absolutely perfect, but now I understand why. Because it was reflecting back to me what my beliefs were about myself, about life, about God, about the universe, about others, all the above, right? So it was just simply reflecting back what I believed about myself and all those other conditions. Each set of conditions contains within it everything you need to translate your life into which expresses your love or God. Next paragraph, appreciate what you've created. I highlighted that and I said appreciate it, but also accept it. So in other words, again, we're appreciating what's going on in life and we're accepting it. It doesn't mean that it's permanent. We're just looking at it and go, yeah, this is what's going on. Yeah, I've got this sickness. I've got these bills. I've got this relationship issue. I've got whatever the issue is. Instead of ignoring it or denying it, we're going to love it and accept it, right? And then you can just say, oh, okay, something's going on inside of me that caused this thing to show up. What could it possibly be, right? Bring unconditional love to it. Appreciation, love, and unlimitedness, require the universe to show up in a different way. Why? Because you're acting different, you're thinking different, and therefore you are energetically being a different being. We're all energy. So when you change your thoughts, you're changing your energy. When you change your energy, you are attracting different things to you. Why? Because we are energy. And like energy attracts like. That's why. Right? And so the next paragraph, in other words, karma is not your prison. Bringing your attention to the effects you create is a pathway to great freedom. Oh, this is just so good. So good. Last sentence in that section. Now bring love and appreciation to the very effects that you may be judging. Love and appreciate and accept. Again, I throw in acceptance, right? And again, the rest of the chapter just goes through this idea of just accept, accept, accept. Again, we're reminded that all events are neutral, right? All events are neutral. Any successful person knows that they never fail. And I love that, the sentence where it says, there is no such thing as failure. There's no such thing as failure. What if we just lived our life like that? And we didn't, because for me, failure was a death knell. And so I couldn't handle the pain of failure because the way that I was brought up and the way that I was taught. And instead of looking at failure as the ability to learn something, like I needed to learn something else in terms of what I'm trying to do in my life or regarding a situation, no big deal. It's just a learning opportunity. No, to me, failure was death. And it was to be avoided at all costs, which means what? I didn't take risks. I didn't take chances. And every decision I was making was based off this idea, I can't fail. And even though it's really funny because I wound up failing several times in my life, but now I look back at it with great compassion, great forgiveness, great grace. And then it just makes things so much easier to look at life and just go, oh yeah, I'm creating this, right? I'm creating this. Okay, cool. So how can I change my thoughts, which then are going to change my energy, which then is going to change what I'm attracting in my life? That could be something to look at. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Next week is going to be lesson 30. You were born to create. Giddy up. Have a great rest of your day now. Bye-bye.